Emma Richardson was Ocean City's most promising attorney, working at the prestigious law firm of Morrison and Associates. The morning sun streamed through her corner office windows as she reviewed her latest case files. At 32, she had already made partner and was known for her sharp legal mind and unwavering dedication to justice. But today would bring a case that would test everything she believed in. Varsalin Medin thick manila folder landed on Emma's desk with a heavy thud. Thornfield Pharmaceuticals versus the people read the label in bold black letters. Her senior partner, James Morrison, stood in her doorway with a grave expression. Emma, this is the biggest case our firm has ever handled. Thornfield is being sued for allegedly hiding deadly side effects of their new heart medication. We're defending them. Emma spent the entire night reading through medical reports and test results. The evidence was damning. Internal emails showed that Thornfield knew about the heart medication's lethal side effects months before release. Over 200 people had died, and hundreds more were hospitalized. As she read victim testimonies, Emma felt sick to her stomach. How could she defend a company that had caused so much suffering? Marcus Thornfield, the company's cold CEO, called Emma into his penthouse office overlooking Ocean City's harbor. The 55-year-old billionaire showed no remorse as he discussed the debts. Business is business. Emma, people die every day. Our job is to minimize financial damage, not cry over statistics. His callous attitude made Emma's blood run cold. She was defending a monster. The first day of trial arrived, and Ocean City Courthouse was packed with grieving families and angry protesters. Emma walked through the hostile crowd, her expensive suit making her a target for their rage. "Murderer!" they screamed. "How can you defend killers?" Inside the courtroom, she saw her opponent, a familiar face that made her heart sink. It was her own brother, David Richardson, representing the victims. David Richardson stood to give his opening statement, his eyes never leaving his sister's face. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my own sister sits across from me today, defending a company that has committed mass murder. Emma, I taught you about justice when we were kids. Have you forgotten everything?" The courtroom gasped as the family drama unfolded before their eyes. The first witness was Sarah Miller, a 28-year-old widow whose husband Tom had died from the medication. She broke down crying as she described finding her husband's lifeless body. "He was only 30 years old. We were trying to have a baby. Now I'm all alone because Thornfield cared more about money than his life." Emma watched the jury's faces. They were completely sympathetic to the grieving widow. Emma's cross-examination of Sarah was gentle but necessary. She had to establish that Tom had other health conditions that could have contributed to his death. "Mrs. Miller, I'm so sorry for your loss. But didn't your husband also have diabetes and high blood pressure?" Sarah's face hardened. "Are you saying it's his fault he died?" "That monster of a company killed him." The jury looked at Emma with disgust. Emma's cross-examination of Sarah was gentle but necessary. She had to establish that Tom had other health conditions that could have contributed to his death. "Mrs. Miller, I'm so sorry for your loss. But didn't your husband also have diabetes and high blood pressure?" Sarah's face hardened. "Are you saying it's his fault he died?" "That monster of a company killed him." The jury looked at Emma with disgust. That evening, Emma discovered something in the Thornfield files that made her blood run cold. Hidden deep in the medical data was a report showing that the company had tested an alternative formulation that was completely safe but chose not to use it because it would cost an extra 50 cents per pill. 50 cents? That's what 200 lives were worth to Marcus Thornfield. Emma confronted Marcus Thornfield in his office about the alternative formulation. His response was chilling. 50 cents per pill, multiplied by millions of prescriptions, equals hundreds of millions in lost profits. Those people were going to die anyway. They all had heart problems. We just ... accelerated the timeline. Emma stared at him in horror. She was working for a complete sociopath. Unable to sleep, Emma walked along Ocean City's moonlit beach at 2 a.m., wrestling with her conscience. Her phone buzzed. a text from David, "Emma, it's not too late to do the right thing. Our parents raised us better than this. Remember what Dad always said, justice isn't about winning, it's about truth." She stared at the message, tears streaming down her face in the moonlight. The next morning in court, Emma made a decision that shocked everyone. As she stood to present Thornfield's defense, she instead pulled out the hidden documents about the safe medication. "Your Honor, I cannot in good conscience defend my client. They had a safe alternative and chose profits over people's lives. I'm submitting evidence of their criminal negligence." The courtroom erupted in chaos. Marcus Thornfield jumped up, his face purple with rage. "You're finished, Richardson. I'll destroy you. You've violated attorney-client privilege." The judge pounded his gavel repeatedly. "Order, order." David looked at his sister with pride and amazement. Emma stood calmly amid the chaos, finally at peace with her decision. She had chosen justice over her career, and it felt right for the first time in months. Within hours, Emma was fired from Morrison and Associates and faced disbarment proceedings. Legal ethics experts debated her actions on every news channel. "She violated one of law's most sacred principles," said one expert. "But she may have saved thousands of lives," argued another. Emma sat in her empty apartment, unemployed and possibly facing the end of her legal career, but sometimes feeling lighter than she had in years. The Thornfield case ended with a record-breaking $2.8 trillion judgment against the pharmaceutical company. Victim families finally got justice, but Emma was still facing disciplinary action from the state bar. Her hearing was set for next month. Meanwhile, she received hundreds of letters from grateful families thanking her for her courage. One letter from Sarah Miller made her cry, "You gave my husband's death meaning." At the disciplinary hearing, Emma faced a panel of 5 senior attorneys who would decide her fate. The prosecutor argued she had shattered the foundation of attorney-client privilege, but then something unexpected happened. David stood up in the gallery. "May I speak for my sister?" he asked. The panel was surprised, but allowed him to proceed. Emma Richardson saved more lives than any lawyer in this state's history. David's passionate defense continued. "Yes, my sister broke a rule, but she prevented an ongoing massacre." Thornfield was still selling that deadly medication when Emma exposed them. Every day of delay meant more deaths. She didn't just save the people who already died. She saved the thousands who would have died next. The panel listened intently. Even the prosecutor seemed moved by David's argument about preventing future deaths. After 3 hours of deliberation, the disciplinary panel returned with their decision. The chairman, a stern 70-year-old judge, looked directly at Emma. "Ms. Richardson, you violated attorney-client privilege, which is inexcusable. However, your actions prevented immeasurable harm to the public. We hereby issue a public reprimand and 6-month suspension. Suspended. You may continue practicing law." Emma collapsed in relief. 6 months later, Emma opened her own law practice, Richardson Law, Justice for All. Her first client was a whistleblower from another pharmaceutical company. Word spread quickly that Emma Richardson would fight for people against powerful corporations. Her small office above a cafe in downtown Ocean City was always busy. She had found her true calling, being the voice for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Emma's first major case at her new firm involved Oceanic Industries, a chemical company dumping toxic waste into Ocean City's water supply. The case would be even bigger than Thornfield, affecting the entire city's 200,000 residents. Emma and David decided to work together officially, renaming the firm Richardson & Richardson. Their first strategy meeting was held in their childhood home, where their parents had taught them about justice. The Oceanic Industries case attracted national attention. The Richardson siblings discovered that the company had been illegally dumping industrial chemicals for over 10 years. Cancer rates in Ocean City were 300% higher than the national average. Emma and David worked 16-hour days, interviewing victims and gathering evidence. The case would require proving that Oceanic's chemicals directly caused the cancer cluster affecting thousands of families. One of the most compelling witnesses was 8-year-old Lucy Martinez, who had developed leukemia after drinking contaminated water her entire life. Her mother, Rosa, tested through tears. "My baby has never known what it's like to be healthy." She spent more time in hospitals than playgrounds because of what these monsters did to our water. Emma had to leave the courtroom to compose herself during this testimony. Oceanic's defense team was led by the infamous corporate lawyer Victoria Sterling, known for never losing a case. She argued that the cancer cluster was coincidental and that many factors could cause cancer. During cross-examination of the victims, she was ruthless. "Isn't it true you smoked cigarettes?" she asked one victim. "Don't you have a family history of cancer?" she pressed another. Emma watched in disgust at these heartless tactics. The turning point came when Emma's team found a former Oceanic employee named Dr. James Park, who had kept copies of internal reports showing the company knew their dumping was causing cancer. Dr. Park had been fired when he tried to raise concerns internally. "They told me if I spoke up, they'd destroy my career and make sure I never worked in science again," he tested. His evidence was devastating to Oceanic's defense. Victoria Sterling's cross-examination of Dr. Park was vicious. She accused him of stealing company documents and having a grudge against Oceanic. "Isn't it true you were fired for incompetence, not for being a whistleblower?" she demanded. Dr. Park remained calm. "I was fired because I put human lives above corporate profits. I sleep well at night knowing I tried to save people." The jury seemed impressed by his integrity under pressure. As the trial progressed, more Ocean City residents came forward with their stories. The courthouse steps became a gathering place for families affected by cancer. Emma was moved by their courage. Many were dying, but still found strength to testify. Local news covered the story every night. The whole city was united against Oceanic Industries. Emma felt the weight of representing not just clients, but an entire community fighting for survival. The scientific evidence was overwhelming. Independent testing confirmed that Oceanic's specific chemical cocktail was directly responsible for the cancer cluster. The company's own internal studies, revealed by Dr. Park, showed they had calculated that paying lawsuit settlements would be cheaper than properly disposing of their waste. Once again, corporate executives had put profits above human lives, and Emma was there to expose them. Victoria Sterling made one last desperate move. She offered a settlement of $50 million to make the case go away quietly. Emma convened with her clients and presented the offer. The response was unanimous. "We don't want their money, we want justice. We want to make sure they can never do this to another community." Emma smiled with pride. These cancer victims were willing to risk everything for the principle of justice. The jury deliberated for 2 days before returning with their verdict. "We find Oceanic Industries guilty of criminal negligence and award damages in the amount of $5.2 trillion. The courtroom erupted in celebration. Families hugged and cried tears of joy. Emma and David embraced as cameras flashed around them. It was the largest environmental lawsuit victory in American history. Justice had prevailed once again. After the Oceanic victory, Richardson & Richardson became the most famous environmental law firm in the country. Emma and David were featured on the cover of Time magazine as the lawyers who fight for life. Speaking requests poured in from law schools across America. But Emma remained focused on her mission, taking on corporations that poison communities. Her next case involved a mining company in Appalachian Mountains. The Appalachian mining case revealed how Blackstone Mining had been dumping mercury into mountain streams for decades, causing birth defects in children and neurological damage in adults. Emma and David traveled to remote mining towns, meeting families whose lives had been destroyed by corporate greed. The poverty was heartbreaking, but the courage of these mountain families reminded Emma why she had chosen this path. Blackstone Mining hired the same law firm that had represented Oceanic, led by Victoria Sterling. Emma realized she would face her nemesis again. This time, Sterling had learned from her previous defeats. She hired private investigators to dig into Emma's past, looking for anything that could discredit her. The corporate war was escalating, and Sterling was playing dirty tricks that went far beyond the courtroom. Sterling's investigators discovered that Emma had once been arrested for protesting outside a pharmaceutical company during college. They also found photos of her at environmental rallies. Sterling planned to use this to paint Emma as a radical activist rather than an objective lawyer. When Emma learned about the investigation, she realized the personal cost of fighting powerful corporations. They would attack her character to protect their profits. During the Blackstone trial, Sterling presented Emma's college arrest record to the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Richardson isn't an objective lawyer. She's a radical environmental activist with an agenda against legitimate businesses. Emma felt the sting of the personal attack, but David stood up with a powerful response. My sister's commitment to justice began in college and continues today. That's not radicalism, that's integrity. The Blackstone case took a tragic turn when one of Emma's key witnesses, a former mining engineer named Robert Hayes, died in a suspicious car accident the night before his testimony. Hayes had been prepared to reveal internal documents showing Blackstone knew about the mercury contamination for 20 years. His death sent shockwaves through the legal team and raised questions about how far corporations would go to protect themselves. Despite the loss of their key witness, Emma and David pressed forward with the Blackstone case. Hayes' widow, Margaret, bravely stepped forward with the documents her husband had hidden. Robert died trying to expose the truth. I won't let his death be in vain, she tested. Her courage inspired other Blackstone employees to come forward with evidence. The company's conspiracy was finally being exposed by the people who had implemented it. The Blackstone case ended with another massive victory, $3.7 billion in damages for the affected communities. But the victory was bittersweet, overshadowed by Robert Hayes' death. Emma realized that fighting corporate corruption came with real danger. At the victory celebration, she made a speech. Robert Hayes paid the ultimate price for truth. We must never forget that our fight for justice puts lives at risk. 5 years after the Thornfield case, Emma reflected on her journey from corporate lawyer to crusader for justice. Richardson had won over $15 billion in damages for victims of corporate crimes. Emma had been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for her environmental work. But the personal cost was high. She had no family of her own, having devoted her life entirely to fighting for others. Still, she had no regrets. In the final episode, Emma stood before a packed auditorium at Harvard Law School, delivering the keynote address to graduating lawyers. You will face a choice, she told them, between serving power and serving justice. I chose justice, and it cost me everything I thought I wanted, but gave me everything I actually needed. The law isn't about winning, it's about standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. Her words echoed across the legal profession, inspiring a new generation of lawyers to choose conscience over career. Emma Richardson had become more than a lawyer. She had become a symbol of moral courage in an age of corporate power. Her journey from defending pharmaceutical killers to fighting for environmental justice proved that one person's conscience could change the world.